Hi, and welcome to another JavaScript Mastery video. In this video, we are going to build this little project. I wouldn't even call it a project. It is a special exercise I designed for learning hooks, as well as managing inputs and button clicks. We are going to handle these events in a hooks type of way. So all of this is managed with hooks state. As we type the username there as a JavaScript mastery, for example, you can see that we immediately print it out right there. It's all using hooks, and these inputs are managed using hooks as well. So we have a state of username, and then we have a setUsername method, which actually updates that username. Down below, we have a password. We can do 123 123, and you can see we immediately print it out right there, but we do some special little logic to hide the password. Then we are dealing with a button event, with a button click, on which we handle yet another state with hooks and show the password. So we can toggle it or untoggle it. That's it. Although it may seem easy and nothing special, this is not a project to showcase. This is a project that is really going to expand your knowledge of hooks and help you understand them in a useful and real-life scenario. We can start with an empty Visual Studio Code window. What you need to do next is create an empty folder and just drag and drop it right there. I already did that with mine. Then you can go here on the top of the screen to the view and then finally to the terminal. So that opens the terminal for us. Now we can see where we are. We are currently in the React practice. That's how I call the folder. Yours might have a different name. What we can do next is initiate empty React application. We can do that by running npx, create React app, and then /. // means that it is going to create it inside of the current directory, meaning React practice for me. So we can click enter and wait a few moments. Now that that is done, we can get started with our little project. What I like to do with every single Create React App application is to completely delete the src folder and create it from a ground up. So I delete it, and then we can create a new src. This is easier because we don't need all of the files in there. We only need an index.js, as we always do. We need an app.js, so app.js right there. And for purposes of this video, we are also going to need app.css, for which I'm going to provide you the code. It's just for some simple styling. The purpose of this video is really to focus on the actual hooks and using events. Let's start with our usual index.js. In there, we have import React from React, as we always do with React applications or files. Only in index.js, we still have the import React DOM from React-DOM, and then we have import app from /app. Great. And finally, we need to have React DOM .render, and in here we put the component that we want to render. So this is the app component, which doesn't exist yet, but we are going to create it right now. And the second parameter to the render method is the actual element. So we are going to say document that get element by ID, and in there we specify the root. For beginners watching, I don't want this to be mysterious. Where is this root? What's happening right there? So let's show it. Inside of the public folder, you have the index.html. And if you go inside of there, you have all of this little comments, and this spans on multiple lines. What I like to do is I like to tidy it up a bit, so we can make this in one line, remove the comments, remove the spaces right there, remove this no script, remove this comment, and finally, take a look. What are we left with? This is something already familiar to you. This is a basic HTML file, and in the body, it has only one thing: a div with an ID of root. That's exactly what our React application is hooking onto, and that's where our all components lie, right there inside of this div with an ID of root. And we are targeting that right there and putting our app inside of that. So let's go inside of our app. Inside of the app.js, we are going to create a basic functional component. So we are going to say import React from React, as well as the const app, and then an arrow function. And in there, of course, we have a return which is just going to be a div for now. Finally, we are going to say export default and then app right there. Great. That's awesome. The only thing that we can do right now is we can import the app.css as well. So we can say import /app.css. Usually in more complex React applications, you're going to want to have the components folder in the SRC, and also you'll want to do the styling with modules. But in this case, we can just use simple app.js for everything since we don't have a lot of code, and we can use this little import for an external style sheet. Great. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to paste the CSS code inside of this app.css. It's just a really basic CSS. We have some flexed containers, as you can see right there, some styling for the input, and some styling for the button. That's absolutely it. I know that many people don't feel like retyping the CSS, so I'm going to leave this in the description and you can just copy and paste it. But that's it. So now this is just going to bring some styles in our application, but again, the focus of this video are hooks and events on the inputs and the button. So let's go back and let's say test for now, just so we can test it out. What we can do right now is we can go ahead and say npm start. This is going to start our application, and if we've done everything correctly, we should see a div that says test and maybe some styling because we imported the styles. So let's see. Great, as you can see right there, our test is in here. It's small, but it is in the middle, which means that the styles have been successfully imported. Now we can get to the use state hook, the hook that we are going to explore in more detail in this video. To use state inside of functional components like this one, we need to use hooks. More specifically, we need to use a use state hook. We can import it like this. So we have React, which is a default import, and then we have a comma, and then in between curly braces, we have use state, which is a named import. That's it. How does the use state hook work? Let's try to see it in action. So what we do with use state is we say const, and then we do array destructuring. Inside of there, we are going to have a name of the state. It is going to be, in this case, username. And the second thing in there is going to be a method that changes that username, that changes that state field. And we are going to call it set username. By convention, we can put anything in here, but then we can say set, and then we need to specify the same thing that we have right there. That's just a convention. And then we say equal to use state, which is a function. And that function accepts one parameter, and that parameter is the default value of this username. So we can put an empty string at the beginning. In here, we can have an input. It is going to be a self-closing tag, and we can expand it on multiple lines, just so we can put some attributes right here. The first attribute that the input needs is the type. In here, we just have some basic text. We don't have to hide it, we don't have to do anything special with it, it's just going to be a type of text. The second thing that we can specify is the placeholder. Placeholder is going to be the value that's going to be visible in the input. So it just lets the user know what the input is for. So we can say username, or we can even say enter username, like that. The third thing that we are going to need is going to be the value. So the value of this input. What value should it hold? It can hold something that we specify right there, something static. So if we go back, now you can see that we have tests right there, but if you try typing, you cannot do anything. At the start, the value of an input field should be empty, right? So if we set it to empty like this, and we go back, now if we try typing, we cannot type again. That's the issue. We need to make it dynamic. To update the value, we need an onChange handler. So we can say onChange right there. And inside of the onChange, we have a callback function. This function is going to run for each key press. The thing that we get in here is the event. Event specifies the key press. But how do we get the value of the key press? Let's first explore what the actual event is. So we can say console log, and then we can say E. If we save that and go ahead and take a look, we can open the console by right-clicking and clicking inspect. And now let's open the console right there. clean this, and let's start typing. So if we say test, you can see we get nothing because we are not changing our value, but do we get anything in here? For each key press, I got a synthetic event, and that event has a lot of stuff in there. It has timestamp, bubbles, event phase, current target, target, type, a lot of stuff. The only thing that we're going to need is going to be target. So event.target. Let's see what do we get back from that. Okay, now if we type test, we get this input. You can see if you hover over it, it highlights it. So we get the input. But how do we get the value from the input? Well, we just say event.target.value. And this is going to give us the current value that we typed in. So if we say A, it's going to say A, T is T, and we can say test right there. That's it. But now, how do we update this and actually create a word from all of these letters, and we need to combine them into one word? So how do we do that? We need to change the value of the input on each onChange event call. So how do we do that? We specified that at the beginning, the value of the username is going to be an empty string. That is exactly what we have right now. So that's fully okay. We can just exchange the static value for our username that's coming from the state using hooks, of course. Great, let's go back and see if anything changed. Okay, we still do get the test, but the value is not changing. And that's because we are just console logging this value. We are never actually changing it. Now let's bring this into one line and delete this console log. Now, remember how we said that for each state using hooks, there is a specific setter method. So the only thing that we need to do to make this work is that we need to say set username, and inside of there, as a parameter, we need to pass the actual value. And as you remember, the value is stored under event.target.value. If we go back and take a look, you can see that now we can actually type, and the value is indeed stored in that username state. For people who are new to React, this may seem like, okay, this is a basic thing to do. But for people who have been using class-based components to do this, this is going to seem super cool. It's actually crazy that we can do this with one line to initiate the state, and then one line in here, inside of this input, to change the value for that input. With class-based components, you have to have the whole class, the constructor, the state, the handler methods for this onChange handlers, and so on and so on. It's so much simpler having it like this. Great, now we learned how to use state inside of an input and also how to change it. We can do one small thing right there. Since this is a function and we have only one thing inside of it, we can just omit this braces. We don't need them. We can just have it like this. It looks a bit cleaner. Great. Now let's do the same thing for a password. So we can even copy this. I'm copying this by holding Alt or Option and Shift and pressing the arrow down. If you'd like me to create a video about all the Visual Studio Code shortcuts, there are many of them. You can shift these lines, you can copy lines, you can edit multiple things like this. It's crazy. There are so many things that you can do. Also indent like this. So many things that you can do. If you'd like me to create a video about all the keyboard shortcuts, just let me know. So now we can have a password right there, and we can also say, as you already learned, set password. And at the beginning, we are also going to set it to an empty string. We can also copy the input. Okay, now that that is copied, the only thing left to do is change this to enter password and change this to password and change this to set password. Let's see if that works. Okay, now we do have two inputs, and if we say test and we say 123 123, oh, there's a problem. Our passwords should be hidden. So how do we hide them? Well, we just change the type of the input to password. One more time, test 123 123, now hidden. Great. So what are we going to do with the state fields? Usually what you would like to do is you want to for example, sign in a user. For example, imagine that this is a login form. You would have to use this states to sign in the user, or register the user, or send this data to the email and check whether the user exists, so on and so on. Again, this is just an educational video to teach you how to use all of these different events, state, hooks, and so on. But the possibilities of this are endless. For our purposes, let's just show what we've written right there below the inputs. That's it. So below the input, what we're going to do is we're going to create an h2, and in here we are going to have the username, just like this. And we can create a new one for the password. Okay. While we are at it, I just forgot we need to add a class name to this div, and the class name is going to say container. That's just going to center everything. Great. Okay, now that we are testing it out, the first thing that we can do is we can say username, for example, JavaScript mastery, and the password is 123. Let's say that we want to show as many star signs, so this thing right there, if you can see it in the console, as there are letters or numbers. So if there are 123, we would just want to show 6 stars. We need to implement that somehow. In here, you're presented with a real world problem, for example, to hide this, and now you need to figure out logic based on the old state that you have, how to do it. In this video, we are going to do it together, but again, you can practice this on your own. Just think of something, some functionality that you want to implement, and then try to do it with logic and programming skills. Great. Let's put that button right there. So one more time, on the button click, we want to show or hide the password. So let's say show or hide password. Just like that. Great. We have this button right there. And the password that we are referring to is this one right there. So that's the password, that's the text that's coming from the state. Of course, we need an on-click listener, the same thing that goes for the on-change. It's absolutely the same. In there, we have a callback function that is being executed every time that the user clicks the button. And the same as here, we have the event. This time, it is going to be a click event. So, what do we want to do on the button click? Well, we want to change this password from the, let's say, plain text to star signs to hide it. How would we do that? Well, we would need another state field. We would need a state field, for example, called show password. So we're going to create it, show password, and then set show password. With hooks, as you can see right there, we can have as many hooks as we would like. So we can have one use state, second use state, and third, and so on and so on. In class-based components, you just have state as one big object, and then you have to copy this, that state, that's something, this, that state, that's something else, so on and so on. In here, we just have show password and set show password, the same thing as for every other use state. So in here, we can specify the value of show password that we want to have at the beginning. At the beginning, we are going to have it as true. So at the beginning, let's say that we want to show it. Again, this can be true, false, doesn't really matter right now. So how do we change it in here? We say set show password, and then we can say true, for example, or we had true, so let's say false to turn it off. How can we toggle between the states? So in here we have true. How can we make it to false? Well, we could just say false, right? But then it would never turn it to true again. We want to have it to toggle. So on, off, like a switch. That's the job for the not operator. So we can say not, and then not what show password was before. So currently show password is true. So we can say not true, which is going to be equal to false. Then the show password is going to be false, and we are going to say not false, which is going to be equal to true. So we are toggling it. Now we are managing state of whether we are showing or hiding the password. Now we can do something about this. Now we have the access to that boolean, to either true or false, and based on that, we can change this password. For now, let's say that if the show password is true, then we display show, else we display not show. Let's just have it like that, simple. So this is pseudocode. We just say if something then something, but this is not real JavaScript. So let's convert it into real JavaScript. For this, ternary operator is the best. We can use the if statement right there, but since we just have the if and the else, ternary is a bit of a better option. So let's have it right there. We are going to delete this password for now, and we are going to say, so if the show password is true, we say show password, and then a question mark, that's the syntax for the ternary operator, and then the action if the show password is true, that's the show. Else we say not show. Just like that. If we go back to the browser, we can say test, and in here we can say 123 123. Now if you click on the button, you can see that it actually toggles, but it's not displaying our real password. So now we need to fix that. Let's say if it is showing, show us the real password. So we are going to say password right there. Let's see what happens now. Test 123 123. Okay, it is being displayed and not shown. Great. But we mentioned that we don't want to do just not shown or show. We just want to have as many star signs as their characters. So now this is where I would like to stop you a bit, and you can pause the video and try to find a solution your own. So let me specify what do you need to do. So if the show password is true, display the password, else show the asterisk sign as many times as there are letters in the password. Okay, so this is the exercise. You can stop the video and try solving it yourself. Okay, whether you stopped the video or you didn't, we can now move on. So let me show you how to do it. There are many different approaches. For solutions like this, programming is really special because everything in programming has many solutions. The solution I thought of and that I find really concise is just to use the string.repeat. So this is our string, right? Just the asterisk. And we want to say that repeat, which is going to repeat it n number of times. And how do we get the number of letters in the password? Well, we just do password.length. That's it. This is going to repeat the asterisk as many times as there are characters in a password. Great, that's it. Let's go back and check it out. So now if we say, for example, JavaScript mastery, and if you try typing 123 123, that's never a good idea. Don't have passwords like this. And then you can click show and hide password, and you can see it actually shows it and hides it, but it hides it with 6 of this asterisk signs right there. Again, nothing special, nothing flashy, but we are here to learn about the state and how the events work. That's great. I have another little exercise for you. Depending whether the show password is toggled on or off, don't just show and hide this thing right here, but also with it, show and hide the password in the input as well. You can again pause the video and try solving it on your own. If not, I'll be back in about 2 seconds to solve it. You can let me know how did that go in the comments, and generally in the comments you can request for the video ideas, give the feedback on this video, let me know what's good, what we could do better. Should I speed up the pace of teaching or should I slow it down a bit? Should I do more complex videos? Should I do more complex videos or the easier ones? Okay, now that that is out of the way, let's actually solve this. So the only thing that we needed to do is to change this password from the type password to type text. And we need to do that depending on the show password. So we are going to say this, curly braces to show that we are dealing with JavaScript logic right there, and then we can do another ternary. If show password is true, then we want to say text, because it shouldn't be hidden. Else, we are going to say password, because that's what hides it. Password. Great. Let's go ahead and take a look. JavaScript mastery 1 to 3, 1 to 3. It's shown. If we click show or hide, it actually toggles it in both cases. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching. If this video was helpful, feel free to smash that subscribe and like button, and also let me know what you would like to see in the next one.